Alright, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, just for old time's sake or something like that. So another video. Just, keep trying. Trying to figure out how to communicate, this difficult subject. Life sucks. It's not a great thing to have to tell people or to argue with people about when they're busy, with some agenda. They're working on their golf game, or they're, improving their tennis something or other, or they're whatever, painting their house, or they're putting in a new kitchen, or some sort of horse shit they're doing, and they're all invested in it, and it's all going to make things great. Everything's going to be fantastic, and they really don't want to think about the fact that it's all, turns to shit in the end. And, there will be nothing will be preserved. But, maybe, I don't know, I don't even know if graveyards are preserved anymore. They probably just consolidate them and pave over them and just, put the name somewhere over there. And, well, it's all quite dismal. But anyway, nobody wants to hear that, apparently. People have a high level of resistance to somebody talking about it, where, part of me can understand that, just because there was times in my life where I would have thought it unnecessary, to have the conversation, I suppose. So I might have been distracted enough about my own personal agenda and getting what I wanted that, I wouldn't think it was a worthy enterprise to, detail meaning, But, most of my life I would have found it interesting if somebody was talking about, the fact that we're just biological machines and we're kind of just narrowly programmed by bullshit, silly circumstances of where you grew up and who grew you up and what kind of things you bumped into in terms of other people or even other animals that you interacted with. And you're just reflexively reacting to the world, and your narrative isn't any more special than anybody else's little story they're telling, and you might as well be retards. You might as well be living in some bliss of ignorance and animalistic unenlightenment, ignorance, than bothering to contemplate the reality, because you're never going to engineer a bridge to, a better future. You're not going to build anything. So you might as well not have the skills to build anything. Knowledge and capacity to reason and all that crap. You might as well just be ignorant and let shit happen, because the shit's going to happen whether you have intelligence or not, unless you have to construct the better future. You can't just wait for it to happen on its own, that kind of thing. You actually have to defeat the Nazis, that kind of stuff. There's actual work to be done, and the only way you can do the work is you have to be aware that the work needs to get done, that kind of thing. So in some ways it's an argument in defense of civilization, but it's ultimately in defense of the fact that our lives are sort of just bullshit, and we ought to just get on with the project of not forcing organisms to live bullshit existences. It's just the nice thing to do, is to spare them all the unnecessary grief and hardship of failure. Settled and comfortable.
Loud.
Or do you have tension or nerves or some other thing? And so I was just talking about the fact that, I'm just one of those people that was innately uncomfortable on Earth, and, to some level, I'm not saying I was miserable. I just had a lot of moments where I saw flaws and imperfections, and they bothered me, and some of it scared the shit out of me, and some of it just smelled bad. You know, and that's the type of person I was, so I was more likely to, just this is, this is the probable outcome of being just a little bit too picky. I don't know. Not the best word, but we'll throw it in just for the hell of it. I'm trying to be fair. I'm just saying that I wasn't doing anything philosophically grandiose. I was just recognizing that, the wheels are wobbling, kind of thing, and they probably shouldn't do that. Paranoid and fear control. Yeah, so that was making a comparison between the two extreme conditions, just being too paranoid, too worried, be too aware of all of the things that could go wrong, and then having the power of ignorance, which allows you just to do something and not obsess about the fact that you don't know how to do it and that you have no skills of doing it, and you just do it. And both strategies work depending on the circumstance. The strategy won't work if you actually have to have some kind of muscle memory, some sort of real experiential practice. If it's essential that you have that, well, then you're not going to sit at the piano and, play a reasonable song. But some things you could do. Like maybe walking a tightrope. If you just didn't think about it too much and just said it's a straight line, I'll just walk the straight line, you probably could, because you would just pretend the rest of the circumstance doesn't exist, the daggers and the bullshit. Working with a net, working without a net, kind of thing. You're probably better off imagining that you're working with a net when you're working without a net. Probably. Learned to make it reflexive, and you haven't learned any of those reflexes, so you can't just say, hit the key over there on the piano. You can't just say it. You have to have created the learned memory of how to do it. So you will fail because you didn't think it through. So it's just making the point that, yes, sometimes you really do have to be aware of all the variables and the circumstances, or you're really not going to get anywhere. Describe it, because I'm kind of cynical about its substance. Like, it doesn't have any. It's just a knee-jerk addictive reaction. They have a positive experience with the heroin, therefore. I sort of even compared that to like a kid growing up in an abusive environment, with that love-hate thing, where they're desperate for the little good moments where, daddy praises them, yet they somehow have to endure all these negative circumstances where they are made to feel like shit or abused even, and it's going to make a mess out of their capacity to do thinking, In my clarity. But one of the subjects I wanted to get to, or stay connected to the concept, is just the idea that all we are is a reflexive. Right. So last week's title had reflex in it. It's just really important to just recognize yourself as just that, reflexes. And there's reflexes you can see, in the sense that your consciousness gives you some glimmer of the connection between the word blue and the sky. Your brain will let you see the reason why you connect those two things. But then a lot of the other reactions of your body are just innate, subconscious, and you don't feel it happening to you. Where somebody could be saying something, and each thing they're saying is just piling a piece of tension, because it's causing dissonance and irritation in your brain, and you really don't notice it until you finally say, "Oh, could you just shut the fuck up," or something, because now you're sick of it. You're just, you're you've built up the tension from all the trigger words, and your response is you sort of surprises yourself in the sense that why was my reaction what it was? I seemed calm, and I wasn't. So it's more subtle. So there's parts of you, okay, that you can say I have responsibility for because I sort of see the connections, and so I know they exist. And then the parts of you that where you don't get to see the connections and you don't know they exist. There's there's dissectable triggers and triggers that are just so subtle that you can't see them, kind of argument.
You know, all angsty. You know what I'm saying? Well, yeah, I guess that's the nature of why I'm so uncomfortable here on Earth. Is that
Right. So just saying that, yes, okay. So fact is, yeah, my psychology is easily triggered. You could also say I'm, you know, hardly described as a snowflake, but I melt.
feeling thing is? I could argue in the past, a cup of coffee and a cigarette.
So just talking about the little moments, and and the little moments are frankly just made out of relief from any kind of crap. So they're just really, it's just a fact that the goods are removal of the bads. The unbad is the good. And so you prevent a bad, or you stop a bad from attacking, or those are the goods. And once you've eliminated the bads, then you can just sit and be comfortable. And all we're really doing is fighting the discomfort that seeps into us, either through physical, breakdown, or environmental, crap that maybe shouldn't bother us. That's where the triggers come in again, right? Some people could just, they're not going to be annoyed if somebody's playing their music too loud. They're not going to be annoyed if they're cooking something that they don't like smelling. And they're not, they're more durable to aggravations. They can accept a few hundred mosquitoes and they're, yeah. Different strokes,
Pieces of
different folks, kind of thing.
clumps of stuff. The collections of clumps, like the moon is a clump. It's got
Yeah, so just making the argument from material reality, the universe is really doing just that. Clumps moving, banging in, exchanging energy, and that's all that is inside of us, is a bunch of mechanical systems that only have one possible outcome. They're predictable, mechanical, strict. There's no rule violations. Nothing can go. Nothing speeds. Nothing. Nothing does anything outside of the simple rules of the simple mechanical interactions. And it is just kind of amazing that you can get this much complexity out of such simplicity. But the catch is the complexity is really very, it's checkers. It's not even chess. It's not even hopscotch. It's a very simple tic-tac-toe-ish kind of game that the brain is playing. And the outcome seems so distant from anything simple, but it's just tic-tac-toe on top of, multi-dimensional tic-tac-toe. It's just all the way down simple.
existence, and why does it have the job of being a battleship? What's the war about?
Right, so then we just make the evolution argument that that's all we are. We're constructed machines. We have a purpose in this war, and the fact is, though, is that now we have a tool, that gives us the ability to examine why are we in the war? Why are we fighting the war? What's this? Why are we bothering with war? Why don't we just go sail somewhere and have fun? So it can ask all kinds of questions. It's no longer just a tool. It's a tool that says, that has functions that allow it to say, you could just analogize it to a torpedo and it's heading for the target. and it starts asking questions. Does this target really need to be blown up? Do I want to really get blown up to blow up this target? And that's the position humans are in. We're in a position to question the agenda of the machine, with the tools to screw with the other living things to get what they want, the eatables and the fuckables and all of that. And we have now the capacity, the extra tool. The tool that made us more capable has also made us capable of asking questions that aren't related to this DNA agenda of consumption and reproduction.
If you could really control it, and people should be honest about that.
I'm not sure what they should be honest about, so we'll jump ahead, because I don't remember what that was about.
This hard, nasty experience, and then for what? Some, I don't know.
Yeah, some notion of accomplishment, that's it. So, there's just no way to rephrase it except to say overtly that I don't think you can define a good that isn't made out of the absence of the negative. So, our best experiences and our most enjoyable experiences is where we're lifted out of all the tension and fog and distractions of, being a battleship. And the sun's out, and we put the deck chairs out, and your brain basically says, let's just sit in the sun and have a nice moment. But it's just made out of getting out of the war, so to speak. A vacation. It's just vacations. And they're only good because they're not bad.
So a bunch of thoughts popped in my head, and that's the hope.
Anyway, so yes, we'll jump a little bit ahead and see what kind of thought popped in my head.
And you see that consciously happening, and others are just...
So I'm just making the point how, yes, some of your reactions, they're learned, and you can really see how you learn them. You can see the correlation between some reaction you have and your history and past and all of that. You can see why your brain got triggered, and other triggers, not so much.
Just in the last 30 years, I did it so infrequently that the few times I did, I did think about it.
Okay, so I was thinking about talking about gutting an animal or something, and I was talking about physiological reactions. So people have very different reactions to somebody who's in distress. Let's say bleeding on the street, and the sight of the blood will make some people faint. Sometimes the smell, lots of different things will cause people to have a reaction. So they're all triggered differently. And the fact is that I can have some mental recognition of that as a possibility, but there's not much you can do about those reactions. And it's very hard to understand where some of them come from. Like, is this some sort of really old evolutionary snake thing, where your brain just innately doesn't like certain things moving, certain shapes of movement, certain appearances of movement, and there's some, really old, established reaction that's built in? Or is it just some childhood bullshit that, somebody who gave you a hard time was wearing a yellow hat and now you have a real problem with yellow?
Start obsessing about how unacceptable what they're watching taking place is. They don't even question it. They don't do any philosophy. They just deal with it as what the biological reflexes are, and there's very few of
hard to say exactly, but yes, it's just on the general subject of people and their different reactions. And that those reactions, when you don't have to feel the badness of something, it's a lot easier to ignore the badness of something when it doesn't cause a feeling. So if it doesn't create some kind of fear or anxiety or worry, or it doesn't feel threatening, then maybe it's easy to ignore. So if you don't have the association between watching something happen to something else and your brain doesn't get triggered by the idea, what if it was me? If it doesn't say that, then maybe it just won't care at all, and it won't be an event. I mean, maybe it needs to turn it into a selfish threat, something personally related to what's going to happen to you.
But when I really get relief from it, you can just feel the difference. It's just so, whoa, my eyes actually do open all the way.
So it's a little bit like just allergies and how, some days I'm just the whole day you're just, the tension is obvious in the sense that your system isn't quite right, and your battleship is in the fog, and it's got to fight through all of this stuff that's kind of diminishing, how it senses and how it functions, and that all ends up being a lot of work, and it's fatiguing, and it does have an effect on your general mood and function. Just a general statement. I mean, duh, kind of thing, but yes.
Some sort of welfare life that people, they're on welfare.
Right, so just kind of talking about the fact if you're not paying for it, it's easy to not pay much attention. And so the fact is that most of the people who have time even for philosophy have time to watch a video like this rather than, the quick fix kind of things and the simple things. People doing this more, spending time thinking about life and its meaning. They're not people who, have one leg or something. Or, they're not people that tend to be very distracted by just getting the job done of keeping the boat afloat. So, they not only can they not do the agenda of the battleship, but they certainly can't do the let's go on vacation or let's just sit in the sun while the boat's taking on water. They're quite distracted by the taking on of the water. So it's just more about how much empathy people can have and, how distracted they are by any kind of notion of watching the battleship next door sink, whether that scares you a little. And for some people, they just don't make the connection between what happens to that and what happens to them. Not even in the indirect way of saying, it was 50-50. One of us, it was, just some recognition that if they didn't sink, you would, the sinking thing would still have to happen, and it could have been you.
But every now and then there's an actor who's just quite homely.
All right, so just talking about the fact that everything's sort of engineered in terms of the appearances. So even our stories about reality are sort of fake because they don't hit as hard as they could in terms of, it almost would be child abuse to have a sitcom, with a truly ugly kid in it, who lives you're meaningless and unimportant, and you're just a you know what I mean. You're just extra people to have at the party, so it looks like it's a party, but you're not one of the guests that matter. You're just furniture. And that would be even cruel and difficult for people to watch if that actually took place, kind of thing. So they always make the loser give them some exceptional. They always make them into some kind of idiot savant. They have some sort of special talent. They have some sort of special redeeming function that makes it not a sad and tragic story. Anyway, so it's engineered, and people just do that. They engineer it into something more palatable. They try to tell the truth, but it isn't the truth. So then, I even talked about the colors in this image in the background, blah, blah, blah.
Painting, the substance of it.
Yeah, see, people don't, some people won't bother paying any attention to the substance. They just say, pretty color, pretty shape. It'll just be, some aesthetic thing that's very superficial, and they won't recognize that this story isn't a good story, even though it has some pretty colors in it. And Our Lives is not a good story, even though it has some precious moments.
We'll talk to the frog, right? I mean, so why might as well listen to what the frog.
Okay, so I was talking about the lizard and how, this is sort of the definition of Joe Ugly. If it wasn't for his exceptionally pretty colors. So if he didn't have these pretty colors, man, would he be a loser? Yeah, kind of thing.
A lot of outside work, a lot of that kind of.
All right, just making excuses for why I'm not as functional as I should be because, I got a lot of things to do. And I'm, my life is just a little more complicated. So it occupies more of my time doing just the bailing and the fixing the rusting bits and doing this and, it's just life is, yeah. So anyway, but I hope to be able to devote more time. But, I have spent some time outside in the sun, almost vacationing. And, I probably shouldn't be doing that, I should do my little battleship job. But anyway, some self-indulgence is difficult to weed out of your plan. Out of living. You have to, and so... I'm always a little bit on the defensive because, so I got to do better than this. And, I keep saying I have to do better than this, and I just don't do it. But anyway, I'm working on it. So I'll just keep saying that. I promise, someday you'll say, oh, okay, I see. He was really working on it. It was just that it, takes time to glue all the matchsticks together. But he's got a plan. Anyway, that cannot possibly fail. Anyway, so till the next time and such. Call that a video. Just, keep, if I keep playing with this Play-Doh, eventually, it's going to look like Richard Nixon. I'll make it into something. Eventually. It won't be all monstrosity, word monstrosity. Be poignant and direct. I have to do more of the gray videos because they're more poignant and more direct. But anyway, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah. Yeah, that's enough.